Hey, friends, welcome back to the Lifestyle School podcast. I'm your host, Hope Plack. And if you are new here, I just want to say a big welcome to you. This podcast is all about simplifying health and helping you build a lifestyle that supports your goals long term, not through extremes, not through punishment, and not through another crash diet, but through understanding how your body actually works. And, on here, we talk a lot about metabolic health. We talk about fasting, real food, mindset, movement, stress, hormones, and the habits that truly move the needle when it comes to your energy, when it comes to your weight, your confidence, and your long-term health. And today we're going to dive into one of the most fascinating and powerful systems built into the human body. And that system is the system of autophagy. So we're going to call this episode Spring Cleaning Your Body. And, I know it's May and technically maybe a little late for spring cleaning season, but honestly, I think this is a conversation that is perfectly timed because this is a time of year when people are naturally starting wanting to reset, get ready for summer. People are cleaning out their closets, hopefully cleaning out garages, getting rid of junk, opening the windows, letting that fresh air in, wanting to feel lighter, more energized, clear-headed. And what's interesting is that your body actually has its own built-in cleaning system. And this system is designed to clean up our damaged cells. It's designed to recycle waste, remove dysfunctional cellular material, improve efficiency, and support healing and repair. And the crazy kind of wild thing about it is that a lot of people never actually activate this system. And not because their body is incapable of activating it or broken in some way, but because modern life keeps us in a constant state of consumption, whether that be a constant state of eating, of stimulation, stress, input. We're always adding, right? But rarely are we allowing the body time to repair. And today I want to explain how autophagy, or first, what autophagy is, how autophagy works, what triggers it, what prevents it, and why it matters for our metabolic health. And, what people often notice both physically and mentally when they begin utilizing it. And I also want to clear something up right from the jump. Autophagy is not some trendy biohacker buzzword. I feel like, in the world of social media and online living, there's words that become popular for a time and they come and go. This isn't like a celery juice cleanse. This isn't a fad. Autophagy is real physiology. This is how the human body was designed. And once you understand it, so many things I think about your health, about fasting, about energy, inflammation, aging, and metabolic dysfunction start to make a little more sense. At least that is my hope for you. And before we get into the meat of today's episode, as a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any major changes to your diet, fasting routine, supplements, or exercise. And guys, as always, if you enjoy this episode, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend, leave a review, subscribe to the podcast, and follow me over on Instagram or Facebook at Hope Platt Coaching. I was just looking at like the reviews that I have on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and I think I have five ratings on Apple Podcasts and one review. And I have three people gave me 5 stars on Spotify. You guys would make my day if we could get both platforms to 10 reviews. That would be amazing. So I know there's, at least 20 of you listen maybe on a weekly basis. So if you guys would do me the immense honor of going over to those 2 platforms, just finding the podcast, subscribe to it, hit the 5-star button, write a couple words like I tune in every week and, I enjoy the podcast or whatever comes to mind. That will help me get the word out about this show and would just bless me in such a meaningful way. And also, if you guys are looking for more support when it comes to improving your metabolic health, if you're at the beginning of your health journey, if you're in the middle of it, if you've been on it for a long time, if you're looking for, support, help with healing your relationship with food, losing weight, sustainably, or maybe even learning how to implement fasting the right way, make sure to check out my course, Lifestyle School for Weight Loss, and then the availability of one-on-one coaching in conjunction with the course. And then also, I wanted to give you guys a little update because I am on my own journey. And oh man, I was gonna write down this note before I started, but I am officially 2 weeks in as of today on my fasting journey. Give me a second. I have to do a little bit of math to tell you how much like where I'm at weight wise because I couldn't remember. Okay. I just did it. It's early in the morning, guys, as I record this, and I didn't want to try to do it in my head because that's not happening at this stage postpartum and this time of the morning. But I'm officially 2 weeks into my own journey of implementing everything that I teach in the Lifestyle School for Weight Loss course. I'm doing the fasts, I'm doing the workouts, I'm balancing my blood sugar, I'm focusing on sleep, managing my stress, and all that fun stuff. And in 2 weeks, excited to announce I am down 7.4 pounds, which is a lot for 2 weeks. But again, a reminder, I have a lot of weight to lose. I'm working on losing 50 pounds. I could probably even lose a little bit more than 50 pounds, maybe like 55 or 60 pounds. And so, as what happens on any new weight loss journey is like you do, especially if you have a lot of weight to lose, it's very likely you can lose weight much faster. My favorite fasting technique and what I have used for years, on and off, is I do really enjoy 42-hour fasts. And so, a little bit about what I'm doing right now. I am doing a 42-hour fast Monday, Wednesday, Friday during the week. And, if that seems like a lot to you, it's because it is. That is the like up the highest level of fasting that I would ever encourage anyone to do. It's the most like cumulative hours that I would ever have anyone that I coach fast. But I find that my body responds really well to it. I feel really good. And I'm tracking my ketones, I'm tracking my blood sugar. So I'm doing 3 42-hour fasts a week. And I'm trying to get to the gym to do some strength workouts as much as possible. I've been getting about 4 to 5 in a week. And then, as I go throughout my week, I'm carting kids to soccer, to karate, to this, that, and the other thing. I'm trying to get as many steps in as I can. Really working on balancing my blood sugar this weekend, which I thought was interesting. I definitely had a little bit more carbs over the weekend than I had the previous weekend. And I could see that and how it impacted. Like I didn't stay in ketosis over the weekend. And then I'm finishing a fast at lunch today. It's currently like 6:45 in the morning. And I weighed in this morning and my weight was back to what I had been prior to the weekend of eating more carbs. And so yeah, I feel good. Last week definitely had more challenges when it came to just, like walking out my plan. My first fast of the week, which was a week ago, Wednesday, I had just like the hardest fast that I have done. I mean, it just started, but it felt like such a hard fast. And then I realized, oh, my menstrual cycle came back. And that's why that fast felt so hard. I was having that huge hormonal shift. And then on Friday, I was trying to fast during this like super long, boring 8-hour meeting that I had to sit through that also had like a buffet available of food and like, chocolates on the table. And so I just really leaned into fasting aids, which I felt to be really helpful. And then, this weekend, my kids finished up like their soccer season and I was making like Rice Krispie bars. We were going to like we had a number of different like gatherings that were centered around food. And, it felt harder. And that's just part of this process. But I do feel like I have stayed the course and seen how my blood sugar responded, how my ketones responded to having a little bit more carbs this weekend. I definitely feel motivated to like stay on top of that a little bit more closely through the weekend because I don't do fasting on Saturday or Sunday. Through the weekend to like help propel me like when Monday comes, I'm not regaining ground that I lost over the weekend, if that makes sense. So, anyway, guys, that is my update. If you have questions about my journey, always send them over. I'd love to answer them. And also, I'm trying to keep people updated on my Instagram stories about this process as well. So, if you're interested in following along as I lose these 50 pounds, this pregnancy weight, go follow me over there. One last thing before we get into the episode today, don't forget my supplement store is open. If you've been wanting high quality supplements that you can trust that are tested for quality and purity, unfortunately, like I've said before, that's not something that you get when you buy supplements at the grocery store, your health food store, Amazon. You can support the show by heading over to my website and buying your supplements through my store. My website's www.hopeplaquecoaching.com. These are the same professional grade products that I use, my family uses, I recommend to my clients. It's an easy way to support the show. And if you do want to create an account, you will need a special code. That code is 104567. When you head over to my website, you'll see on the top right corner, there's a button that says store. Click on that. It'll take you to the supplement store. And then, if you're not sure where to start when it comes to supplements, what to take, check out episode 43 of the podcast. And I, on that podcast, kind of tell you my philosophy when it comes to supplements, what I think, is important for, people to be taking on like a base layer. I think I go over the core 4 supplements I recommend for metabolic health. So any questions about supplements, guys, also feel free to send me any of those questions. I'm always so happy to answer them. And with that, let's get into today's episode. I'm really hoping Josiah is going to stay sleeping so I can finish this podcast recording. So let's start with, the big question. What is autophagy? Hopefully you've heard of it before. The word autophagy literally means self-eating. It's one of the most intelligent and protective systems in the human body. Autophagy is basically your body's internal recycling and cleanup system. It's the process where your cells identify damaged or dysfunctional components. Your body then breaks them down and recycles the not the unusable. It recycles the usable pieces and then discards the rest. So think about it like this. Imagine if you never cleaned your house. Ew, gross. You never cleaned it ever. You just kept bringing groceries in, new clothes, Amazon packages, furniture, decorations, you name it, kids' toys, but you never threw anything away, right? You never vacuumed, you never organized, you never took out the trash, you never cleaned out like the broken toys that inevitably happen when you have kids. Eventually your house would become cluttered, dysfunctional, overwhelming. It would literally be an episode of Hoarders, right? And that's essentially what happens inside the body when the cleanup processes aren't functioning properly. I hope you have like a really good picture when I said episode of Hoarders, because I think that's a really good visual. Your body is constantly producing waste, just like we do in our homes, right? We're constantly producing garbage. We've got old proteins, we have damaged mitochondria, we have inflammatory debris, we have oxidized cells, we have misfolded proteins, and all of this is normal. It's just a part of living. Living creates wear and tear on the body, just like living in your home creates, food waste, scraps, garbage. But the body was designed with a system to handle that. And autophagy is one of those systems, and it's the cellular cleanup crew. It's your body saying, this part is damaged, let's break it down and recycle it. And what's fascinating is that the body doesn't just throw these materials away. It reuses them. The body is incredibly efficient. It salvages amino acids, energy, cellular materials to rebuild stronger and healthier structures. And honestly, this process becomes incredibly important for things like our metabolic health, for our inflammation levels, for healthy aging, for energy production, how our brain functions, how sensitive we are to insulin, and our mitochondrial health. Because when damaged cellular material accumulates over time, things stop working efficiently. Like, think about your house. If it's super cluttered, super dirty, like you can't operate efficiently in a house like that. I mean, I know I sure can't. And when this happens with damaged cellular material, our energy production suffers, our inflammation is going to increase, our hormones then, slowly become more and more dysregulated. Our body becomes more stressed because of this dysregulation of hormones and increase in inflammation. And this is one reason why metabolic dysfunction is so incredibly common today. I recently, I know I've talked about this on the podcast, but it's only like 12% of Americans historically in the last year or so, according to the most recent data that I had seen, were considered metabolically healthy. And I just saw an update to that, and it's even lower. Like some estimates in some demographics, I think it was for men specifically, it's as low as 3% are metabolically healthy, and for women, I think 9%, which is wild. We're just like, as a society, so metabolically dysfunctional. And I think a core reason why this is most people, like culturally, we are putting people constantly in growth and storage mode. And that repair mode rarely happens. And your body needs both, right? You need to both buy groceries so you can live and eat, but you also need to take out the trash so your house doesn't get infested with rats and smell, right? And this is such an important point. Growth is not bad, right? Being in like growth mode in your body is not bad. Building is not bad. Eating is not bad. Protein is not bad. Muscular growth, of course, is not bad. But we need periods of cleanup, right? And that's why I like to think of fasting as a healing and a cleaning phase for our body. And I think of feasting as a rebuilding phase, because truly we need both. And modern life often removes that cleanup portion entirely. So let's talk about how autophagy actually works. I'm going to keep this simple because, I don't want you guys to feel like you're in a biology lecture. We're going to keep it light and fluffy, but educational, of course. I do think understanding the mechanism helps people understand why fasting and metabolic health can be so powerful to how you feel and how your body reacts and how your ability to lose weight is. Your body is always sensing its environment, right? It's either thinking like, are resources abundant, or do we need to conserve and repair energy? And when food is constantly coming in, especially if you're eating, a lot of ultra processed foods, if you're a frequent snacker, especially of those processed foods, the body's going to stay focused on things like digestion, on storage, on growth, on reproduction, and nutrient processing. I do like to always tell people digestion is an extremely high demand function of the body. It takes a lot of energy. And so if you're constantly digesting food, your body isn't going to be able to take that energy and, use it elsewhere. It also takes a lot of blood flow. And this is heavily driven by insulin and nutrient signaling pathways, whether or not, we're in like storage mode or if we're in repair mode. One of the major pathways involved here is called mTOR. And now you don't need to memorize that, but mTOR is basically a growth pathway. It's stimulated when nutrients are abundant, and especially things like protein and carbohydrates. And, again, I want to be clear, this pathway isn't bad. We need mTOR. It's really important for muscle growth, for healing and repairing tissue, for building strength. The problem is when it's constantly stimulated, because if the body has never experiences periods of lower nutrient signaling, it never fully shifts into cleanup mode. And that's where I think, another pathway comes in called AMPK, or activated protein kinase is what that stands for. AMPK is more of an energy sensing pathway, and it becomes activated during fasting, during exercise, during calorie deprivation. And when energy demands are really high. NPK tells the body, hey, resources are lower right now. We need to become more efficient. You can think of it as like almost like your internal Doge system, right? We want to be efficient. We want to use our resources properly. Not to make that a political statement at all, whether or not you agreed with that, but it's about efficiency. It's one of these things that become increasingly during. It's one of the things that becomes like increased. AMPK becomes increased during this state. Sorry, it has to increase for autophagy. Like, how am I going to actually say this sentence? You have to increase AMPK to enter the state of autophagy. And like I said, autophagy means to eat oneself. And so when autophagy then is triggered, the body starts looking internally. Damaged proteins, let's clean those up. Old mitochondria, let's recycle them. Broken cellular parts, let's remove them, right? Inflammatory junk, let's deal with it. Your body is essentially shifts from a store and grow cycle to a repair and recycle cycle. And this makes so much sense from an evolutionary perspective because humans were not designed to constantly eat all day long, right? You look at history, food scarcity has been a normal part of the human experience for a very, very, very long time. It's just recently where, we have food available to us 24/7, our 7-Eleven on the corner, 24-hour Walmarts, grocery stores. Prior to that, periods without food was very normal, right? If you wanted bread, you had to go into the kitchen, get out the flour, get out the yeast, put it together, let it rise, knead it, pound it down, let it rise again, put it in the oven, and then you had your bread. Where now you just like walk into any convenience store and you can have whatever you want. So, historically, periods without food was very normal. Movement was normal. And, during these periods, the body adapted by becoming more efficient, not weaker, right? You think of, when we were more of like a hunter-gatherer society or or even like, the cultures that are more hunter-gatherer in nature, there would be periods where there was not as much food, but if they became weaker during that time, they would have died, right? Because they had to go out and hunt and they had to go find that food. They had to kill it. They had to carry it on their back all the way back to wherever their fire was, where they could cook it, where they could eat it. So, the body is extremely adaptable. We're meant to survive. We didn't become weaker with these low times of nutrients. Our body didn't immediately shut down. We became more efficient. And now, obviously, starvation is harmful, right? Chronically undereating is harmful. I want to be clear about that. But strategic periods without food can activate very, very, very beneficial pathways of repair in the body. And this includes autophagy. And I can tell you from my own experience, I have gotten myself, I'm tracking my ketones on my own journey. And at certain levels of therapeutic ketosis is where you really start to trigger autophagy. And I have been getting to those places during my fast throughout the week. And I can tell you, wow, like I feel so much different when I can tell like autophagy is being triggered. My energy is better. My mental clarity is better. My skin always looks so much better. And like people will like notice how my skin looks different. And I actually had someone comment this weekend like, oh, you look less tired and more refreshed. And I had to chuckle to myself because the night before my son had literally been up every 2 hours having a classic 4-month sleep regression. And I was like, oh, thanks. I mean, I was up all last night. I did take a 2-hour nap, but I do definitely think it's because of what's happening with autophagy and how it like changes my skin so dramatically. And so I want to talk about like what are the things that trigger autophagy, what stimulates it. So I want to go through like some of the major things that can trigger autophagy. First and foremost, fasting is probably the biggest one people know about. I think it's the most effective because when insulin drops and nutrients are temporarily unavailable, the body begins shifting into repair mode. And that insulin drop is key. Now, one thing I want to make clear about autophagy is that it's not like you flip a on and off switch and then it's like you're in autophagy and then you're not. It exists on a spectrum. Okay, so there's different levels of fasting that likely stimulate different levels of autophagy. So, for example, we have a bunch of different types of fasts that we do here at Lifestyle School. In my course, I teach you about. We have, just overnight fasting. We have things like time restricted eating, 24-hour fast, 36-hour fast, and then, the longer, more therapeutic fasts that are also, higher in frequency. And they may all, I would say the lower ones, I don't know if they exactly, it would be a very, very low level of autophagy. They all stimulate autophagy to varying degrees. Generally speaking, though, the longer fasting periods create a stronger signal for cellular cleanup. And that is because the body starts realizing we need to become more efficient with our resources. And this is one reason why fasting can be so incredibly powerful for metabolic health. Not because, fasting is magic, although sometimes I feel like it kind of is, but because it gives the body, time to stop constantly processing incoming food. It is the most efficient tool to lower your insulin. It's going to improve your metabolic flexibility, your ability to burn fat for stored energy, and your ability to store or like to use incoming nutrients and glucose for energy. Helps you access that stored energy via lower insulin. It activates your repair pathways. And frankly, I think most people just don't spend enough time in this state where their body is in repair mode. We wake up and we eat immediately first thing in the morning. That used to be my MO. I thought I had to do it for, healthy blood sugar regulation. I would snack every 2 hours throughout the day. We eat late at night. And the body really never gets a break from digestion. We never get a break from that constant signaling that nutrients is coming in. And then that repair pathway is never able to be triggered. So I think fasting is like the number one tool when it comes to autophagy. But I think exercise then kind of goes hand in hand. I love doing a fasted workout. I think exercise can be a major trigger, especially, exercise like resistance training, sprinting, or, like an intense HIIT workout, and then endurance exercise as well. Because exercise creates temporary stress, temporary damage, a temporary energy demand, and your body adapts by becoming stronger and more efficient afterwards. Exercise also improves mitochondrial health tremendously. And mitochondria matter because they're basically the energy factories of our cells. Poor mitochondrial health is heavily associated with things like fatigue, with metabolic dysfunction, inflammation, aging, and insulin resistance. And what autophagy does is it helps clean up damaged mitochondria. So through exercise, you're in improving your mitochondrial health, and then you have autophagy coming in and helping clean up these damaged mitochondria. And this specific process is called mitophagy, which is basically mitochondrial cleanup. And now it wouldn't be a Lifestyle School podcast if we didn't talk about how sleep goes along with autophagy. Okay. So, I think this is something when we talk about autophagy that a lot of times gets overlooked, but not on this podcast, guys, because we are all about sleep over here. Deep sleep is repair time. You've heard me say this over and over. Your body does enormous amounts of restoration during our sleep, which is why it's so incredibly foundational to everything we do, whether it's weight loss or improving our health. Hormone regulation, brain cleanup, cellular repair, recovery. All of this happens while we sleep, and poor sleep disrupts all of it, right? And I'm sure you have felt that side effect of getting a poor night of sleep. And this is why you can't out fast, out diet, out exercise chronic sleep deprivation. You can't biohack your way around terrible recovery. Your body needs rest. And, I think this is one of the reasons so many people feel inflamed, they feel exhausted, and they feel stuck is because we're not sleeping, right? We're overstimulated, we're under recovered, we're overfed, we're sleep deprived, we're stressed out. And, many people are either sedentary or they're overtraining, and the body never feels safe enough to fully repair because this like key pillar of good, restful, restorative sleep is not happening. Excuse me. So let's talk about what some of the things that like prevent autophagy. The three pillars of things that I think help promote it are, again, I'll just review fasting, exercise, and sleep. Things that prevent autophagy, let's talk about them, or suppress autophagy, I should say. Number one, I'm sure you've kind of like picked up on this based on everything I've said so far, but constant eating. This is probably the biggest one, especially constant snacking. And that's why I say when you're starting this journey, we got to clean up the snacking. Like, let's eat our 2 to 3 square meals a day. And let's drop the snacking. Our body is not meant to be digesting food for 18 hours a day. It's incredibly demanding on our system. And then anytime you put food in your mouth, it stimulates insulin, your pancreas to produce insulin. And so your insulin stays elevated all day long and your body stays focused on storage, not cleanup, not recovery. And this is especially true with ultra processed foods because, they tend to spike your blood sugar, they spike your insulin, they're going to, increase your cravings via, how they trigger different things in your brain. And they're going to dysregulate your satiety hormones. And this keeps people literally trapped in a constant feeding cycle. I just had a conversation with my kids in the car the other day. They're like, Mom, why don't we have cinnamon checks for breakfast? Like, can we have it? And I strongly believe in trying to not just tell my kids like what we're going to eat and what we're not going to eat, but why we're not going to do it. And so I was taking them through like, well, why wouldn't we want to have like sugary cereal at breakfast? And they were kind of able to figure out, it's because of our blood sugar. Well, like, why? Because it's gonna, put you on the blood sugar roller coaster. I kind of went through that with them, and your blood sugar is gonna go really high right after you eat it, and then it's gonna crash, and you're gonna feel super hungry. Like an hour later, your blood sugar is gonna feel low, so you're gonna feel like you need something sugary again to get it back up, and so you're gonna eat something sugary again an hour later, and then your blood sugar is gonna spike up high, and then it's gonna crash. And it's going to, create this cycle of the blood sugar roller coaster. And you're not going to get any good nutrients because you're not getting any proteins. You're not getting healthy fats to build your muscles, to build your brain, to build your cells. And that's how you end up, sick and tired and overweight. And so, yeah, it's always kind of fun when I get to have those conversations with my kids. Anyways, back to what prevents autophagy. So constant eating, I would say, is right there at the top. Having insulin resistance is also right up there. Chronically elevated insulin is a major issue because when insulin is high, the body struggles to access that stored energy, right? Which means fat burning decreases, you're metabolically like inflexible, your repair signaling actually decreases, and it makes the body essentially stuck in storage mode. And again, we have to have those signals to say, hey, it's time for cleanup. And high insulin actually just blocks that. And this is why insulin resistance impacts so much more just than our weight. It affects our energy production, inflammation, hunger signaling, our cellular health, our hormone health. It's a really big deal. And that's why it's so important that we address it. Other things that prevent autophagy from happening, on the flip side, sleep is super important to it. If you're having poor sleep, dysregulated circadian rhythm, that's going to negatively impact your ability to achieve autophagy, right? So things like late night eating disrupts sleep and your circadian rhythm. Things like artificial light exposure, especially late at night, doing things like shift work. These things all matter. Your body runs on rhythms. And when your circadian rhythm becomes disrupted, your repair pathways often become disrupted too, unfortunately. And that's why we got to make sure we're having good sleep hygiene. We're really taking care to go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, get the adequate hours of sleep in the night so we can wake up in the morning and feel refreshed. Chronic stress is also a big one. Stress itself is not bad short-term short-term stress can actually strengthen the body. It's important. I mean, that's what exercise is. Fasting is a short-term stress, but chronic unresolved stress is definitely different. Because what that does is it constantly elevates your insulin, or not your insulin, your cortisol. It keeps your nervous system activated. And, emotionally, it's like this overload. And eventually, your body, if you're in a state of chronic stress, it's going to prioritize survival versus optimization, which autophagy is all about optimization, right? And people feel it. And so, making sure that you are, evaluating your life. Am I living in a state of constant stress? We just did a whole episode on stress last week talking about the HPA axis. How am I dealing with stress? Do I need to change my mindset? Do I need to change some of the ins and outs of my daily life? Do I need to make some changes in my relationships? What does that look like so that you're not living in a state of chronic stress? Or also maybe changing your perspective. We did an episode on this a while back, but how can you coexist with stress? There's some chronic stressors that you can't get away from, whether that's a sick loved one or like an ailing parent you're taking care of. Maybe you've been through a divorce and you have to figure out how to co-parent with this other person who's being really difficult. Maybe you have, an illness that or like pain that you're dealing with. You have to learn how to coexist with that stress in a way that doesn't debilitate your body and your mind, right? And we did an episode back on that. I can't remember the episode, guys. I'm sorry, but we talked about Dr. Oh man, I'm blanking on her name. Dr. Apple. She said the stress prescription book is what she wrote, and we did an episode on that. So you can go try to find it. It's probably around like episode in the 30s or something. So now I just want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what people often notice when beginning implementing fasting, improving their metabolic health, activating autophagy. And again, it's like not a magic pill. There's no really magic pill that I think actually works long-term for health. Ozempic's having its day in the sun, GLP-1s. But again, it varies so much person to person, and how you feel fasting and on your health journey is going to vary person to person as well. But what we're doing here is we're really looking at like the root of why do we not feel well? Why are we not able to achieve the health that we desire? From a root level of our lifestyle, our inputs. And many people report when they start, on this fasting journey on improving their metabolic health, activating autophagy, they find that their energy is so much better. I will say I feel like a different person when I am tending to my metabolic health, especially using the tool of fasting. I am just shocked by how much more I can get done in a day, and how much better I feel. Like I go from feeling like I need to take a 40-minute nap or I won't survive it till bedtime to being like, I don't need a nap. Like, I feel great. I have so much energy. Like, what more can we get done? Right. It improves our mental clarity. We become so much sharper. People notice a reduction in bloating. I'd say this is a huge one for me. As well as improved appetite control. I go from someone who has an insane amount of food noise. I'm constantly thinking about food. What can I eat next? To feeling like I just don't think about food, which was such a that I would say that for me when I first started fasting all the way back in 2019 was the biggest shocker because my whole life I had been obsessed with thinking about food all day long. People find that it's easier to lose fat. Your blood sugar is more stable. That was another big one for me with the stable blood sugar. I had reactive hypoglycemia for many years where I felt like if I didn't eat every 2 hours, my blood sugar would crash and I'd feel like shaky and jittery and kind of like dizzy. Maybe I was going to like pass out. And so I would literally always have food with me because I would have anxiety about not having food available to me when I needed it. And then I'd start to feel like that. And I mean, it's just like not a good way to feel. And through improving my improving my metabolic health through using the tool of fasting, stabilizing my blood sugar, like I never deal with that anymore. And I can go, 2 days without eating any food, and I don't feel those blood sugar crashes, which is incredible. People experience less inflammation, fewer cravings, improved focus. And, like I said, I think one of the biggest things that people notice is the freedom from constant food obsession, similarly to me, because so many people, I think, are trapped in this like cycle of thinking about like, what am I eating next? Like, when can I have a snack? I'm starving. I need sugar. I need caffeine. And these are the things that require so much willpower if you're just like trying to white knuckle your way through like a weight loss program or changing your health to lose weight or become healthier. Because once your body becomes more metabolically flexible, many people can feel calmer around food. And if you can feel calmer around food, that is going to categorically change your weight loss journey. It's psychologically incredibly freeing. And you're going to go from like feeling like every day is just like this huge uphill battle to not binge eat on something to feeling like weight loss is effortless. And what that's going to do is it's going to improve your confidence. It's going to improve your discipline. It's going to improve your resilience. And, it's going to change the trajectory of your weight loss journey because you're no longer white knuckling it, right? We talk a lot about like, let's work with your body instead of against your body to lose weight. And this is like one of the biggest things because discomfort isn't survivable. And fasting, I think, teaches you something really important, and that is that not every hunger signal is like an emergency. It's okay to feel a little bit hungry. Not every craving needs an immediate reaction. Like I still have cravings, but they're way less. And I feel like I can think more rationally about them. And, having that mental shift can be incredibly powerful. Excuse me. I feel like I have something in my throat and I'm sounding really husky. Like I just started deciding to smoke cigarettes or something. But anyway, guys, now I want to talk real quick about some important nuance. Um, and what I want to say is, autophagy is super beneficial. Fasting is super helpful, but more is not always better. Extreme fasting is not automatically healthier. And obsessing over things like autophagy can become unhealthy too. Our body needs that balance of feeding, of fasting, or feasting and fasting, of building, and of repairing, right? We have to have both, and it needs rhythm. And, you know, there's people and there's times in life when fasting is not appropriate. And so things like pregnancy, if you're breastfeeding, you want to not do fasting. If you have a history of eating disorders, if you have certain medical conditions, or if you're underweight, fasting is not probably for you. At least not unlike the level that I'm doing it, right? Because I have 50-pound salutes. And that's why I think it's really, really important that personalization matters. Like, I've worked with clients who their body actually couldn't tolerate fasting while we were working together. So we were using other tools that can mimic fasting in the body, things like fat fasting, to get the results we wanted, but without actually like putting the stress of a fast on their body, because their body just like wasn't ready for that. And I think that's really important, that the personalization matters. Just because I'm doing it doesn't mean you should do it. And, also like making sure we're in the mindset that the goal of fasting is not punishment. The goal is supporting the body intelligently, and wisely, right? And so, if you want to begin supporting these repair pathways naturally, maybe you're wondering like, where should I start? And really, I think you should just start simply, right? You don't need to jump into like 3 42-hour fasts a week like me. You don't need to buy a bunch of expensive supplements. You don't need to do anything perfectly. What you need to do is the basics, like the simple, boring basics over and over and over and over again. And what that looks like is, stop late night eating if that's something that you do. Stop snacking throughout the day. Have your 2 to 3 square meals a day and call it good. Prioritize having protein, fat, and fiber at every meal, kind of basing your meals around that protein and then add in that fat and fiber. Reduce the intake of ultra processed foods. Get to the gym and lift some heavy weights that are appropriate for your level. Walk after your meals. Improve your sleep schedule. Get really good sleep. Manage your stress. Hydrate with electrolytes properly, and go spend some time outside in nature. Consistency matters more than, intensity, because usually if you're doing something really intensely, you can only do it for a period of time. And doing these simple, basic, boring things over and over and over and over again for weeks and months and years are truly what gets you the results long term that you want. I think people want you to like kind of give you like a magic pill, magic bullet, like voila, and it has to be like super hard for them to believe that that's what's going to actually work. But in reality, this is what works. Small, repeated habits create massive, massive, massive change over time. And I think it's important to remember that, right? So at the end of the day, guys, your body, I want you to know, is incredibly intelligent. We need to celebrate and recognize that. It already has systems designed for repairing, for healing, for cleaning up, recycling, for adaptation. But modern life often keeps us in a constant state of consumption. We're eating, we're scrolling on our phones, we're stimulated, we're stressed. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your health is create space, right? We've talked about this before, space for your body to repair, space for insulin to come down, space for your cells to clean house, space for your metabolism to become flexible again. Because autophagy is strategic repair that happens when nutrients are not available. It's not like starvation. It's a triggering of allowing our body to become more efficient. And I truly believe that understanding this process helps people stop viewing fasting as, something like a punishment and start seeing it as the beautiful, amazing, powerful tool that it is. A tool that, when used appropriately, can support your metabolic health, your energy, your resilience, and your long-term wellness. So with that, you guys, I want to say thank you so much for being here with me today. Thanks for taking the time to listen. If this episode helped you, please share it with a friend. Again, leave a review, subscribe to the podcast. I'd love to see the subscribers and the reviews get to like 10 this week. That would be an amazing goal. I know that sounds so small, but we're a small podcast over here, guys. And the reason why I would love for you guys to do that is because it does truly help people find this content more easily. And again, if you guys are looking for more support, I do have some spots open in my one-on-one coaching with the Lifestyle School for Weight Loss course. I'd be happy to talk to you if you have questions about that, what that looks like. It's 8 weeks working with me. We meet once a week. And my clients have seen amazing results, you guys. I would say in the 8 weeks, on average, people usually lose about 20 pounds. And I think even more importantly than that, though, I think they start to discover things about themselves, what they're capable of, maybe what some of the beliefs that have been holding them back have been, that really allow them to step into the future with confidence, and the ability to achieve their health goals and their weight loss goals long term. So reach out if you're interested in that. Also, head over to Instagram, Hope Plaque Coaching, or Facebook. Follow along on my journey losing my 50 pounds postpartum. And with that, you guys, we will see you on the next episode.